I think there's a bit of a both is my answer to that question. I mean, I think it's been coming for some time. Everyone's been warning that cyber risk is a really big issue, and we finally had a real illustration of it in a sizable corporation. So there is that happening, and there is, if you read the media, a lot of sympathy for that position that it was going to happen sometime, and it's going to happen to everyone sometime. But the second issue, the one that you raised, the second part of your question is whether uh, uh, Optus could have done more. I think there is a real question there because while we say it was inevitable, it was certainly inevitable in a digitally based company that was so focused on those sorts of issues as was Optus. And it is surprising, therefore, that the extent of the problems have occurred, and there's very little explanation beyond a basic denial of there being a problem within the corporation at this time. So more evidence needs to come out, but I think there are some very serious questions about how this particular scenario wasn't tested, or they didn't have a very secure arrangements for what they were going to do if it did occur. Not to avoid the issue, I must say that, but to mitigate against it and reduce the consequences of it.
I mean, is there kind of any model to follow here for other businesses, or perhaps Optus could have followed based on overseas precedent or something else that it could have again mitigated this particular attack, or is it really that this is kind of a trailblazing event and it's trial and error or something else?
I don't know about trailblazing because if it hasn't happened to corporations yet or in any great extent, it's certainly been happening to governments and to government facilities. So the government itself is very aware of it. ASIC is very aware of it. There have been lots of industry consultations about the issue. So I don't think it comes as a terrible surprise. It's just the first real illustration of it having a massive impact and affecting the privacy of so many consumers. But I think that the short answer is that in the best guides at the moment are available within Australia are those put out by APRA. APRA is the regulating authority for banks and financial institutions, but they've already considered this issue at length and they have several prudential statements on it. So a wise company, even though they're not in financial services, would already be on top of all that and have governance structures set up. And that to me is the surprising part, that there've been the warnings, that there've been some material put out, and that people outside very regulated industries haven't jumped at that and made sure they were planning for it. One thing's for sure, they are now.
Yeah. Not a bad way to learn your lesson is by burning your fingers. That's how I always seem to learn my lessons in life, anyway. But Helen, let's move on just to another topic, another subject, and that's Star Casino. We've got the acting CEO resigning in the wake of the Bell inquiry. Still questions about perhaps the casino's license and its fitness to be able to run, I suppose, a casino. What's an update there that we're seeing at the moment, and has the status changed? Could we actually see Star lose its ability to hold a license?
Well, I think we see a lot in the current resignation of the acting CEO. He wasn't actually there during the time where this misconduct occurred. He took over after the previous CEO left. But the fact that it was made very clear by the regulator that they would not tolerate him remaining in the position tells you a great deal. Firstly, that his position, therefore, was very much subject to being terminated, but also that that was the absolute minimum that would be expected by the operator to contain their license, would be that they would have to change some executive personnel. So what you can say is that this is the first sign that Star is actually reacting to what has been said in the last 2 weeks and is going to take some very significant steps to do everything it can to maintain the licence. Now, you could also equally say that that sounds as if the regulator is already in some forms of negotiation, at least to the point of view that the acting chair of the company has stepped in to be the temporary CEO. And I very much doubt that would take place without at least having consulted to some limited extent with the regulator and seen if there would be any objection to them doing that. So I think there's a sign there's conversations beginning to take place and that Star has finally read the tea leaves and is seeing that they're going to have to do some pretty significant acts to maintain their licence.